Brazil is a poor country, right? That's a question I get asked a lot when I go back to Sweden and I tell people I live in Brazil. And my answer is always yes and no. It's not as simple as that. Because if you go to certain areas of Brazil, so the rich parts of Sao Paulo, for example, there you're going to find lots of really expensive sports cars parked on the streets. And there's lots of really big luxury apartments and houses as well. And it's not just Sao Paulo that you have this, you have it in Rio de Janeiro, Curitiba, Florianopolis, and also one city called Balneário Camboriú. And there, if you walk around the streets, you're just going to see loads of people driving around in their sports cars. I mean, it's crazy how many sports cars you see in that city. And yeah, this city also has lots of $1 million apartments with views of the nice beaches. So Brazil has lots of rich people, but also it has millions of people working on relatively low salaries and also many in poverty. So in these cities that I mentioned, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and the others, they also have large areas of favelas where the less well-off live, and then you have thousands who don't even have a home and sleep rough on the streets. So Brazil is a country of big contrast and inequalities, but you have this in the majority of countries in the world. It's just in Brazil, it's a bit more apparent and at a larger scale than many other countries. So to try and understand this contrast between the rich and the poor in Brazil, I think first of all you need to look at Brazil as a whole. Brazil is a massive country. It's got a population of 216 million people, and also its economy is really big. So it's the 8th largest economy in the world. And if you compare that to like Sweden, for example, so Sweden has a GDP of just $590 billion compared to $2.3 trillion. And one of the factors which have led to Brazil having such a big economy is its natural resources. So Brazil has natural resources worth $22 trillion. So that includes oil and lots of metals and gold as well. And another big contributing factor to the Brazilian economy is farming. So Brazil has 800,000 square kilometers of arable land, which means it's at number 5 in the world. And Brazil is one of the biggest producers of soybeans, maize, beef, sugar, coffee, and lots of fruits and many other things as well. And also another big part of the Brazilian economy is manufacturing. So Brazil has a strong manufacturing industry. So Brazil produces a lot of cars, machinery, food, chemicals, and many other things. And this industry is strong because it's got a big national market of 216 million people buying the products, but then also Brazil exports a lot of these products as well. So all of these sectors, natural resources, farming, manufacturing, and also services, all of these have created a large, strong economy. And so this strong economy has made many business owners, farm owners, investors, and also many in the government as well, very rich. So in Brazil, there's 413,000 millionaires and 69 billionaires as well, which means it's at number 7 in the world in terms of the number of billionaires. And if you have a look at the list of Brazilian billionaires, the one at the top is Eduardo Saverin. So he's got a wealth of $31 billion, and he was the co-founder of Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg. And then the second richest Brazilian billionaire is a woman. Her name is Vicky Safra, and she's got $18 billion, and she owns a large part of a bank called Safra, Banco Safra. So yeah, Brazil's got some super rich people, that's for sure. But then on the other side, you've got the Brazilian workers, the ones working in the factories, the farms, the stores, and that's a different story. And so if you look at GDP per capita, so instead of looking at GDP as a whole, by looking at it per person, now this shows a very different story. So Brazil's GDP per capita is between $10,000 and $11,000. But if you compare that to other countries, that is very low. So this map here, this is for 2022, so it's 2 years out of date. You can still see here that The GDP for Sweden is 56,000. GDP for the US is 76,000. And then compare that to Brazil, which in 2022 was 9,000. And now in 2024, it's between 10 and 11,000. And then if you look at average salaries, again, paints a similar picture. So the average salary in Brazil is just over 3,000 reais, which is about $500 per month. And again, that's very low when you compare it to other countries. So if you look at this map from the website Numbeo, here they show you average monthly net salaries after tax. So here they're showing salary in Brazil is $400 per month after tax. But if you compare that to Sweden, which is $2,700 per month, UK $3,100 per month, US $4,400 per month. Now, I'm not sure how accurate these numbers are, but it just gives you an indication that salaries in Brazil are significantly lower than North America, Europe, and many countries in Asia as well. But within this average salary figure, you've got a big range. So you've got the rich earning high salaries, and then you've got the poor earning a minimum salary or even less. And the minimum salary in Brazil is 1,400 reais, which is $230 per month. So this is the minimum salary set by the government. So again, if you compare that to the rest of the world, that's very low. Now, it's a bit difficult to compare against some countries because the minimum wage is per hour rather than per month. But again, you can see here in the UK, the minimum wage is $1,700 per month. In the US, $1,500 per month. And millions of workers in Brazil, they earn this minimum wage, and they fall into the kind of the working poor class. So here in Brazil, they classify the population between A and E. So kind of E is the poorest, A is the richest. So you can see here at the bottom, you've got the E and D class, which are the working class. So they earn up to 2,900 reais, it's $480. So that's everyone who's earning a minimum wage and earning a bit more. And then also, obviously, everyone earning even less than the minimum wage, because there are many workers who've got informal jobs earning less than the minimum wage. And then above that, you've got Class C, which is the middle class. So that's people earning up to 7,100 reais. So that's $1,100. And then you've got Class B, which is the upper middle class, lower upper class. And they earn up to 22,000 reais, which is $3,600. And then above that, anyone earning over $3,600 is the rich upper class. And you can see here that 50% of the Brazilian workers earn less than $480, 2,900 reais. And if you combine this with the C class as well, that's 80% of the working population in Brazil earn less than 7,100 reais, which is $1,100. And another interesting point about this is that they classify the rich upper class as anyone earning over 22,000 reais, which is $3,600. Which again, in the States, in Sweden, the UK, there's no way you would classify anyone earning $3,600 as upper class. But the fact that salaries are lower in Brazil wouldn't be such a big issue if the cost of living was lower as well. And the cost of living is lower in Brazil, however, it's not lower to the same extent as salaries. And so that causes a lot of problems. So I'll just give you a few examples. We look at cars. So the cheapest car in Brazil that you can buy is Fiat Mobi, and that's got a price of 73,990 reais, which is $12,350. And then if you compare that to the States, the cheapest car in the States apparently is a Nissan Versa, and that is $18,000. So you can see the cheapest car in Brazil is less expensive than in America. But then if you look at how many minimum salaries you need to buy this car, so in Brazil that would be 52 months in order for a Brazilian worker to afford that car, which is just over 4 years. But if you look at the States, so there the minimum salary is $1,500. Obviously it depends on which state you work in and how many hours you work. But if we just take $1,500, so that would be 12 months, so 1 year in order to afford this Nissan Versa. Obviously, that's assuming that they just use a salary to buy this and not pay for rent and food or anything like that. And if we look at other things like the iPhone 16, the cheapest model of the iPhone 16 in Brazil is about 6,300 reais, which is $1,050. And then if you compare that to the States, where there you can get it for about $800. So actually the phone is more expensive in Brazil than in the States. And if you take the minimum salary, then a Brazilian worker would need to work about 5 months in order to afford this phone, compared to an American who could just afford it with just 1 month's minimum salary. Obviously, again, like this is a very simplistic calculation, which isn't realistic, but just to show you the differences. But then if you look at other areas, so groceries, for example, so certain products in the supermarket in Brazil are significantly cheaper. So like beef and some fruits and vegetables, they can be significantly cheaper than in Sweden and in the States. And another thing that's significantly cheaper in Brazil is housing. So both rent and buying a property in Brazil can be much, much cheaper than buying a property in Sweden or the States. And I've done various videos showing you properties for sale for $18,000, $44,000. So you can find houses, I mean, they're not in the best areas, they're pretty small and simple. Obviously, it depends on where you want to live. So if you're going to live in Sao Paulo, Rio, yeah, there it's not going to be much cheaper. But in many other areas, yes, there it can be significantly cheaper. But even though housing is cheaper, grocery can be a bit cheaper and some other things. But if you look at the whole cost of living, it's not low enough in order for a Brazilian worker to afford the same things and the same standard of living as you can in Sweden and the States. So this is a big issue for Brazilians. Okay, so that's just a brief high-level explanation of what it's like here in Brazil. So you can see that Brazil as a whole is very rich, but if you dig down and look at the individual Brazilian worker, and then you've got a contrast of lots of rich people, but then millions earning a relatively low wage, not being able to afford the same standard of living as many other countries, and their life can be a bit of a challenge. But saying that, there has been a big migration of the poor working class into the middle class here in Brazil, which is definitely a good thing. So I hope you like this video. Please leave a like, subscribe. If you've got any questions or anything, leave in the commentary below. So thanks for watching. Until next time.